adi chatnayu llingit enach Yéilk yuchat duasaq dleikach enach Vivian Mork yuchat duasaq Yéilk nach chatsati takdain tana yachat tequidi yedi ka kagwantan dach chansu ka kachchana kudzite chuna kawudach yaida Juneau day ka gwellie Heinz 57 dach to Chinese, Hawaiian, Sami, ka Irish. And as I see a few of you in the audience know that that's Tlingit for hello. A quick translation is simply in the Tlingit language. Please forgive me if I make any mistakes. I am nervous. I will probably make a few. But in the Tlingit language, my name is Yéilk, or cute little raven. Back when Raven was even more mischievous and young and made lots of silly mistakes. And in English, my name is Vivian Mork, but I'm from the Raven moiety, and I'm Tukdain Ton, and a child of the Tequedi, or the brown bear, and a grandchild of the Kagwantan, or the wolf people. And I was born and raised in Wrangell, but my family lineage comes in from Huna, but I do live here now. I moved back in December, back over from Sitka. And originally, I'm an ethnobotanist. I'm supposed to be presenting a film to you today about plants. And we changed it all up at the last minute when we found out that the Haida language movie was going to be in town. And it just seemed fitting to do. And at last minute, Della was able to come to my rescue as well, because I did not want to be a Tlingit, the only Tlingit presenting a Haida language movie. So yay, luckily Della came to join me, but I would like her to be able to introduce herself to you.
Hawa. I have my little cheat sheet here because I'm trying to memorize my introduction. So just bear with me. Stathkawas hinu di nan kiagan. Stathkawas was my grandmother. Guskin hinu di chin kiagan. Guskin was my grandfather. Nunquigagit kianans di au kiagan. Nunquigagit kianans is my mother. Ganaheg hinu di chad kiagan. Ganaheg is my father. Haslagadagan, he's Tlingit. Stathkawas hinu chad kis di kiang. My Haida name is Stathkawas. Delachini hinu yatskat ai. Chats kith di kiang. My iron name is Delachini. Gats akas gustu di kolagan. I am of the eagle family. Chitskit nai jana su di ejan. I am a hummingbird woman. Katsawa yuchat duasak. Yeth na chatsati. Kajadiya yachat. Zakwedi yadiya yachat. Cakes Juana yachat. My Tlingit name is Katsawa. I am a raven of the freshwater mark Tsakai family, and my father is a killer whale, and I'm from Cake, Alaska. And my mother is Haida from Haida Gwaii, and my father is Tlingit from Cakes Kwan, which is just 90 miles as the crow flies over the mountain, so southeast of here. And being from both Haida and Tlingit country, I found that the Haida families, such as the hummingbird, is eagle, and then the shark, what they called a shark, is also, no, they're raven, aren't they? Because they're vicious animals on the Haida side, and they're ravens, and the eagles are the soft animals like salmon and hummingbird and skatefish. So it's opposite in the Tlingit way. The vicious animals are eagle, and the soft animals like sockeye, freshwater marked sockeye and raven are the soft animals there. So it's a lot of fun learning about our different clans on the different parts of our coastal communities, and I love learning more about how we are continuing our way of life and now adding our language to it, because we were raised in a Tlingit community. So we learned the ways of life of the Tlingit people, which isn't very much different than the Haida people when you look at the actual way of life and the seasons that we recognize. Besides the regular seasons, we have the deer season, fishing season, berry season, seaweed season. So we add on a whole bunch of others that we enjoy participating in as our way of life. And so those are some of the things that we practice that are probably quite similar. Maybe different seasons for harvesting cedar bark, maybe, but harvesting spruce roots are probably the same. And before I forget, I have Brianna Frisbee standing here. She's willing to help us with me with a song later. And she's learning the language, the Haida language also. We have one of our teachers in the audience, Susie Edwardson. And we're glad she's here because sometimes we don't recognize our people enough, and I'm really excited about what she's doing and participating in a master's program to learn the language and how to teach it more linguistically, I think. So we're really encouraging her to continue and to come back home to teach us some more. I know she's tied up with a lot of things right now, and I'm just glad she took time to be with us this evening. Right now, I think I'll give it back to Vivian so she could finish up with her discussion.
How many Haidas do we have in the house? Yay! How many Tlingits are in the house? Yay! Yay! So, how many of you are new to Alaska? All right. Okay. So, so some of you know these things and some of you don't, but of the 365 federally recognized native tribes in the United States, around, was it 239 or so, or give or take, depending on who's counting what tribe and who gets kicked out. There's a lot in Alaska. And then back in October 2014, Parnell signed our languages as official languages here in the state of Alaska. So Alaska and Hawaii are the two states that, were the first to recognize our languages right there with English. And, 2014? Took a little while. So in this path of language revitalization and preservation, I think my preference is to focus on the perpetuation and revitalization, even more than just the preservation. And that is one of the most amazing things about the video I think that we're going to see is its perpetuation. And it is an impressive feat to make a feature film in itself. And then entirely in an indigenous language in which, please forgive me if I get this number wrong, but about 20 or less speakers when they started to do the film. Online sources can be wrong, so I thought I'd ask you guys. And yeah, it's a very small number. And so we are working very, very, very hard at revitalizing and perpetuating our languages here in Alaska. And we really wanted people to be able to hear both Tlingit and Haida. If I could have gotten my Tsimshian friend to be here tonight, you guys would be hearing Shmalgiak as well. And one of the first things that when people are learning a language that I like to teach them to say is thank you in another language. So for Tlingit, I'm going to start with that because I'm Tlingit. Or no, you know what? I'm not going to. This is a Haida movie. Let's start with Haida. Let me be Tlingit about that and be bossy. We're going to start. We're going to start with Haida. And so how Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say thank you. And in Tlingit, gunalchish. Gunalchish. And in Shmalgiak, I know this is recorded for later, so maybe one of my Tsimshian friends can correct me later. Ndoikshin. Ndoikshin. There's an N just before the Deutschen. Deutschen. Yeah. And it starts just like that. So one of the first things I did when I was coming back to learning the language again, we were nervous. We're nervous as language learners. We're nervous to speak in public. We're nervous to take the language outside, even though this is our land, even though these languages were born here. And side note, as a linguist, all language is absolutely nothing but a series of sounds put together to create an idea in your head that you acquire with a direct interaction with people and place. Therefore, two people growing up in the same household, with speaking the same language in the same family, by the time they're teenagers may have a different definition of love from each other due to the direct interaction with it. So when we use language, language is always changing. And it is important, of course, to use it and to get it out there. And the more practice, the better. And so my very first time I went to Fred Meyer, and I went to the deli when I was going to speak it outside of family situations. And the lady gave me my chicken and JoJo's back, and this blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman was standing behind the counter. And I got all my confidence up, and she handed it to me, and I said, "Gunalchish." And she looked at me and said, "Yachayati," and turned around. And I walked about 30 feet away before I got myself together again and turned back around and said, how did you learn to speak Tlingit? And she goes, "Oh, I'm from Huna." Immersion's important. Even though she had never taken a Tlingit language class, even though she was not Tlingit, she got to be in a place where she heard it. And she chose to use it. So we just took our Tlingit language class out to Bullwinkle's on Saturday. And we talked the kids into doing the same thing. And they were very surprised when the man behind the counter said, "Ho ho," to their Gunalchish. So, it's been really nice to see the progress that the state of Alaska has made with the support of language and cultural revitalization and preservation. And we need more. And more and more and more. And one of my favorite sayings is that all waterfalls start with a single drop. And these waterfalls started long before we ever got here. And what I love about them is that they're going to be here long after. And I get to see this in the students that are coming after us and the young people who are picking up the batons after us. But to see this film and be made entirely in the Haida language is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I think that's now a way to call up a competition to some Tlingits and some Tsimshians to be working on their next feature film. I'm just going to point to the playwright in the back. And anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to have the languages being more and more. And then, of course, being able to use modern tools like film to share them with others, which is why I'm grateful for Colette being able to bring the language here to the Nickelodeon. We did show it the other day at Tlingit and Haida at the Elizabeth Paradovich Hall. Did some of you get to make it to that one too? Yay! So some of you guys have seen this one before. And so are some of you never even seen the trailer for this movie yet? All right. So some of you are in a whole surprise. So we have cultural similarities and cultural differences, like what Della was talking about between Haida and Tlingit people. We definitely have cultural similarities, and the differences are beautiful as well. But one of the common things are our stories, and our stories that teach us lessons and how to behave ourselves in society, and the stories that we pass down carry knowledge. When you have a language that has resided in one spot for more than 10,000 years sustainably, you have a lot of ancient knowledge embedded in that language. And of course, we have 10,000 years of observational science wrapped up in that language. And there are these beautiful stories, and then there are scary stories. And I love the older Raven stories because they weren't necessarily rated G. The older stories was teaching you what to do and what not to do. And we got to hear them all. And so in the Tlingit culture, we have a character that many people may have heard of before, the Kushtaka. He's a shapeshifter character. Kushta is land otter, Ka is man. So it's this shapeshifter character that can kind of use the natural world as part of its elements to the stories, and everyone's got different stories about the Kushtaka and how to behave and how not to behave around them. But also for our Haida culture, we have a similar character, and I don't know much about this character, and Della's going to tell us all about it.
I'm not going to give the story away. His name is Gagit, and he's similar to that Kushtaka story, shapeshifter. And some of the stories we heard from when we were very little, they were told to us over and over and over again, kind of like Mary had a little lamb, but fleece wasn't as white as snow. So some of those stories can get pretty scary, put you in a different place mentally, and sometimes even physically, because then you start to sweat, your heart starts to speed up. So some of the ways of learning how to bring us home before dark were telling us some of those stories, right? So they didn't have to look for us. We didn't have phones back then. So how did we come home? As soon as it started to get dark. We didn't want to be caught outside with the Kushtaka. So there's all those different kind of stories, or Gagit, I should say. But I grew up in Cape, which is a Tlingit community, so I heard those stories more often than Gagit. But even some of the place-based learning, some of the things that you'll see in the movie will remind us of Alaska and this place. And I wish you did have some medicinal plants, because I think we'll see some in the movie too. Oh. Yeah. But I think learning to communicate with our children about our cultural ways of knowing is what I do in the Juneau School District, besides teaching them how to weave. We teach them a little bit more about our ways of life so that they could learn to write about it in their essays, in their literature, and teach them math through baskets, through making canoes, through making whatever else they're working on, especially in art classes too. I'm getting ready to do a weaving with 7th graders, I believe, at Floyd Dryden Middle School, and they're going to create screen prints of Formline. And it's about taking care of our water, because it's a social advocacy type of project they're working on with another environmental group here in Juneau. and then they present it to the legislature. So then we talk about Raven bringing water, the story of Raven bringing us water, and how precious it is to us. So I don't want to take up more time, but today I went up to the tribal committee meeting at the House, what is it called? The House Representative's Office. I see Sam over here. What's the name of that? The Tribal Committee of the House Representatives?
The new commission.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
new
the new
commission.
commission.
Yeah.
I haven't learned its name yet.
I haven't either. I mean, to put it together so you could talk about it. But boy, do they have a whole bunch of different information that we need to pay attention to if you get the chance, especially if you know some things about our communities, our small communities especially, and needing the ferry education and all these other things that we're fighting for. So anyway, back to you. Before I get on my soapbox.
Yeah. You know, anyway, no, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I could. We could just talk up here for hours with each other, probably going back and forth. But we do want to make sure that people have some time to be able to either. Oh, she also brought snacks for you guys
Yeah, I
if you need
forgot.
some. There's some donuts back there and some
donuts
croissants.
and croissants and cinnamon roll. I
And some
believe.
cinnamon rolls. Yeah. And but we do want to be able to open things up for dialogue. If anybody has anything that you'd like to ask or talk about. Otherwise,
Add to us.
otherwise you'll have to listen to me think of something else.
Are you going to be here after
Somebody
the
over
show? To talk
Uh,
about? Because that'll be interesting.
Would you like us to?
I would.
Okay, I will. What about you?
I guess I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So who, do you know, who do they use for reference for the language in the film?
What's that?
Who did they use for using the reference for the language in the film? The names?
Dr. Dolores Churchill and her sister Jane. Forgot Jane's last name.
Yeah.
Kristovich or something like that.
Yeah.
They were the older ones. Plus some of the people from Masset. Leo Gagnon is also a speaker of Haida, the Masset dialect.
And I think it is important to remember when you're watching that the actors had to be boot camped
Oh, yeah.
through to learn the Haida language, you know, and
There was also Skill Jade, Shrek, and
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Young,
yeah, yeah. And then it also the movie kind of grown organically. I read when people showed up, as things often can do. Especially if you put enough of us in a room together, huh? Then we're like, can my cousin be in the movie too? Just kidding. But it's, you know, it is nice to be able to hear the language more and more and things. I remember when, back in the day when they did Llynget Macbeth, man, that was a big deal, you know. And being able to hear the language used like that and on the stage like that, right, Frank?
About that.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Some more Tlingit plays. Yay.
Frank.
Yeah, yeah. But it's so important to save our languages. And I am going to do my little soapbox for a minute. I think the answer to almost everything is diversity. Whether you are looking at economic diversity or you're looking at basic energy diversity, biological diversity, linguistic diversity. Linguistic diversity is so important, and there are thousands and thousands of languages dying off the planet. They're in the process, you know, of going, and with that you lose entire ways of seeing the world, of perceiving the world. You lose thousands of years just thousands of years old of information when that happens. And I am a testament to learning the Tlingit language changed my life forever and for the better. And I have watched many, many other people down that path. So for those of you in the room that may not be Tlingit or may not be Haida or may not be Tsimshian, if you want to come learn our languages, please come learn them with us. Gunashish for those of you who have, we greatly appreciate you. It is languages to be learned with love, and then they can perpetuate into the future.
Got any more questions, or are we ready for the movie? I think we're ready for the movie. Oh, I'm sorry, we did forget a song. Oh, wait. The song we're going to sing is one called the Lyle Island Song. If you know that song, could use your help. Anyway, it's about Haida Gwaii, where this movie was made, when they were fighting to keep their trees at one point. They're doing it again, but one of the times they were fighting to keep the trees, they created this song, and they were ready to start their protest by joining arms and stopping the equipment from crossing the road to get to the trees. At the last minute, of course, the elders took over. They formed the line. They did not want their children and grandchildren to have felony records and did not want them to go to jail, so the elders formed the line. And one of the elders' grandson or nephew was the one that arrested her. So sometimes our small little world can clash that way, but the elders decided that they would be the ones to be thrown in jail. And some of them were, but out of it came this song, and they did win the fight, but now they have to do it again because the loggers are back. But this is the song we want to sing as a message to our people to know that we stand up when we need to stand up with our people. So this is one of those times. Stand with our Haida people. Yo-ho-wee, yo-ho-wee, yo-wee, hey, hi-ho, ho-wee, ho-wee, ah-wee, hey, hi-ho, ho-wee, ho-wee, ah-ha, ho-wee, ah-wee, yo-ho-wee, yo-ho-wee, yo-wee, hey, hi.